Dr.
You
Paul.
want to go ahead? By all means.
All right, thank you. The DOL is responsible for oversight of QPAMs, but it can't do this without a list and adequate authority. For example, in 1999, Credit Suisse was criminally convicted in Japan. It helped 60 banks and companies hide huge losses. Basically, CS cooked the books. CS directed that documents be shredded, destroyed, or sent immediately to the firm's offices in London, beyond the reach of the regulators, even during an audit by the regulator. Credit Suisse didn't apologise. It said it considered the punishment disproportionate. The Japanese said that CS had deeply undermined the soundness of Japanese financial institutions. The bank's deceptions were planned and systematic, involved the entire organisation in Tokyo, not just a few individuals. There was obstruction of criminal investigations, lying to the regulator, evidence destruction, market manipulation, systematically falsifying documentation, and conducting business without a license. This pattern of wrongdoing has repeated multiple times since then. The CS division in Japan changed its name twice, finally to Credit Suisse International, or CSI. Remember that name, it will repeat. Next year, Credit Suisse in India was caught in market manipulation. It confessed to a fraudulent scheme of synchronized, circular, and fictitious trades, which created artificial volumes, markets, and share prices. It was convicted from trading for 2 years, but the appeals tribunal stated this was unjustifiably lenient. This emphasises that foreign convictions are more likely to be lenient, not severe. Next year, Credit Suisse in Switzerland was caught red-handed in market manipulation again, plus embezzlement and fraud, the CS-TNST case. Just like in the previous cases, it initially denied any wrongdoing. However, this time it was on home ground. There was a criminal investigation. The prosecutor asked for the documents, but CS simply refused to produce the documents or destroyed documents, hid witnesses, lied, and even used bank secrecy to conceal its participation. When any member of the investigation got too close to the truth, he disappeared from the case. Eventually, the prosecutor had no resources left and closed the case. He told us that there was not a single prosecutor in Switzerland who would go up against CS. I went to the Zurich Supreme Court and copied the criminal investigation files. This revealed shocking details of a criminal enterprise operating through multiple CS organisations in different countries. Terrifying conclusions, but later confirmed in other cases. I met with CS legal department several times. They refused to look at the documents and even hacked into our website. I told them I knew what went on and that they had stolen the honest savings of thousands of hard-working taxpayers. I shared my investigation with every major law enforcement agency and regulator. That is why Criminal Bank and QPAM, Credit Suisse, is in such a mess. There is worse to come for it because I know their books are not true. Last quarter, they wrote down $4 billion. They were deferred tax assets, which have been logged as hard capital, highest quality CET1 core capital. That was absurd, and they knew it. The bank's market cap is now only $11 billion. Continuing on. CS was skilled at not only cooking its own books, but for others too. CS hid losses for Enron. That became the US's biggest bankruptcy at the time. CS hid losses for Parmalat. That was Europe's biggest bankruptcy. Thousands of pension funds and old people were damaged. CS should have been stopped after their Japanese criminal conviction. The DOL could have been instrumental. There have been dozens of scandals, even financing Iran's nuclear program. That was a deferred prosecution agreement. You can't give QPAM privileges to a terrorist enabler. CS Switzerland and CS Securities Europe were criminally convicted for defrauding investors with Mozambique's billion-dollar fake loans. The Mozambique economy collapsed. 2 million people were trashed into abject poverty. This is how it was enabled. The head of CS Global Financing Group rudely rejected a compliance request from a junior female compliance officer. He emailed, and I quote, "What the ... swear word this is about? There is some stupid UK regulatory requirement. She's going to be fired if she doesn't behave." Here, to behave in Credit Suisse meant to ignore compliance. In March 2020, CS lost $200 million closing the hedge fund Malachite Capital. Managers warned that procedures needed urgent updating to prevent a repeat. These warnings were ignored, and there was a near identical recurrence, just 28 times bigger, the Archegos catastrophe. There was near zero effective risk management. Peak exposure was 24 billion. The US operations were managed by CS Securities Europe. Yes, the one criminally convicted for Mozambique. They were way out of their depth. So in December 2020, Archegos was migrated from CS Securities Europe to, wait for it, criminal bank CSI, the one that was criminally convicted in Japan. Archegos collapsed. It was indicted for market manipulation, racketeering, having done $100 billion of damage. Imagine what would be possible if the DOL had authority to act on foreign convictions, DPAs, and so forth. Only then will it be possible for it to truly manage QPAM privileges. They can also alert the DOJ, SEC, Federal Reserve, Congress, and so on, as well as working with delinquent QPAMs, if it is possible to do that. $2 to $3 trillion of criminal proceeds gets laundered annually, much of it through pension funds who are generally not equipped for AML. Secretly, some big funds would not complain if laundered money made their results look good, as long as they didn't know. Democracy is dying because corrupt money buys power and political influence, now on a scale greater than ever before. Credit Suisse shows that dirty money can destroy the bank. So what the DOL has asked is just the starting point. It needs the funds to come back to the real world. They're living in a fantasy world, and as long as that fantasy world is propped up like a house of cards, they're going to whinge if anyone changes or imposes regulations, just like before the global financial crisis. When the crisis comes, the people they complained and wanted to get rid of, they're going to desperately need to come back to put it all back together. The world financial crisis is in a very fragile state. Leverage is beyond what was there in the lead up to the Great Recession. And there are several reasons why we can have what's so-called black swan events that can just knock the whole world's economy off its balance. Share markets are not realistic. People don't own the shares. It's all done on leverage finance, and we're moving from an era of low interest debt to high interest debt. The traditional outcome is what we could call stagflation with certainty. But there's not even that much certainty these days. The only certainty is a bad result is coming. And unless we start to clean up our house, try and do the best we can to get rid of the criminal money out of the pension funds so that they can stay stable and can survive the next financial crisis, then we're going to be in a lot of trouble. Thank you.
Thank you as well.